all, thanks for joining us. We appreciate your patience. We shall begin shortly.
Can we start the program?
A very good morning to everyone.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Nasset College of Arts and Science and Department of Applied Zoology, University of Madras, it is my honor to welcome you all to the third day of Virtual International Conference. I would like to start this day with a quote. Progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything, by George Bernard Shaw. The prayer is talking to God, Almighty, the creator of the whole universe. So let us start this day with the presence of God.
Showers of blessing, precious reviving again. Over the hills and the valleys, sound an abundance of rain.
now request Mr. Pradeep, Assistant Professor, Department of Visual Communication, to address the gathering.
Hi, good morning. Eminent scholars, honored guests, and ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure indeed for me to welcome you to the third day of International Conference on Earth Day, organized by Nazareth College of Arts and Science and Department of Applied Geology, University of Madras. I am very happy and grateful that many distinguished scholars and teachers have come from home and abroad to share their knowledge and experience on this special day. I would like to take this opportunity to express my deep appreciation for our chief guest, Dr. Vanita Agarwal, for honoring us with your valuable presence. Special welcome and thanks to Dr. Venkat Pulle for readily accepting our invite and for gracing the occasion with your valuable presence. I welcome our Honorable Secretary, Mr. Hayen Henry Morris. We welcome you, sir. I am delighted to offer a happy welcome to our Honorable Principal, Dr. E. Mary Angel. Welcome you, ma'am. I also welcome our beloved Vice Principal, Mrs. Manoranjidam. We welcome you, ma'am. Earth Day is perceived as the biggest community occasion in the world. The theme of Earth 2021 is Restore Our Earth. The climate change and coronavirus pandemic have reminded us of the harm we caused. Thus, we must restore our Earth not just because we care about the natural world, but we live on it. A healthy planet is not an option, it is a necessity. Once again, I welcome you all for this virtual conference, Restoring Earth to Normalcy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. If your action inspires others to dream more, learn more, and become more, you are the leader, says John Quincy Adams. At this juncture, I would like to attribute this proverb to our chief guest. May I now request Ms. Meenakshi, Department of Computer Science, to introduce the guest speaker, Dr. Vanita Agarwal, Assistant Professor of Department of Management Studies, University of Madras, and NSS in charge, NSS Cell, University of Madras.
Thank you, Christina. A very good morning to all. I have a very pleasant duty of introducing our resource person, Dr. Vanita Agarwal. Dr. Vanita Agarwal needs no introduction. She is very well known and one of the most distinguished person of University of Madras. Yet the occasion demand, and here it is in brief. Dr. Vanita Agarwal received her Bachelor of Engineering from Punjabi University, Patiala. She received her Master in Management from University Business School, Punjabi University. And she received her PhD from University of Madras. She has 16 plus years of experience in the teaching field in different universities. Now she is working as an assistant professor, Department of Management Studies, and NSS coordinator in charge of University of Madras. She received Best Faculty Honor Award in August 2016 from University of Madras. And she received Best Researcher Award in 2017 and 2019 from University of Madras. And she received Best Certificate Online Workshop on HR Analytics, Issuing Authority, NHRDN, Delhi, and NCR chapter. And she received Qualitative Research Methods, Conversational Interviewing, Issuing Authority, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And she's having tremendous skills in higher education, human resources, university teaching, training, HR and OB, and workshop resource person. Once again, we welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you very much for a nice introduction. A very good morning to one and all.
I now
Dr.
hand
Mary
over the
Angeline.
session to Dr. Vanita Agarwal.
Thank you. respected principal, Dr. Mary Anjali, Mr. Henry, Secretary, Nazareth College. It's my privilege to be here addressing you all, including my NSS program officers and volunteers. It's always a privilege when you feel you are the one who can bring a change. I am representing my NSS family as NSS coordinator, University of Madras. I am very happy to collaborate with Nazareth College and Department of Geophysics, wherein we need to understand how we as NSS family can contribute towards restoring Earth. It's a 3-day international webinar, and past 2 days we have learned why the Earth is in need of restoration. And we have learned all the critical aspects, what we need, but my emphasis in today's presentation will be what we can do as a normal citizen, as a volunteer, as a student in restoring our Earth. What way we can contribute, though we sometimes think we are students, we are a single person, but I feel every single person makes a difference. And I will take you through a story and will realize what all we can do in restoring our Earth back to normality. See, this topic itself demonstrates that Earth is in danger. We want to bring it back. We want to bring it back to its glory. Now, as I told you, I am representing my NSS family. NSS was started in the year 1969, and the basic objective of NSS was community service through participation of college students. I'm very proud to say here we have 106 affiliated colleges in the University of Madras, and we have a strength of 24,800 volunteers. So we have the magnitude, we have the strength, and for the past decades we have been working towards environmental protection. Every year as part of NSS family, our family plants 50,000 trees, approximate 50,000 trees. We have been doing flogging where in addition to, like, I am a marathon runner and I always felt we have done so much, but outcome is only your happiness. But actually, when you are doing flogging, you are saving the environment as well as saving your health also. We have participated in Swachh Bharat campaigns. We have been instrumental in slum cleaning. This time we cleaned Perambakam slum area. We have been cleaning other slums also. We have been cleaning beach also. This time we have tied up with Bisleri. See, earlier if you remember, Bisleri was blue in color. Now it is green in color. And that is what they have realized, that their plastic bottles were the one who were causing, because they are non-biodegradable. They are the ones who are causing harm to our environment, and that is where they have started the bottles for change, which we are trying to implement not only in educational institutions, but also we are tying up with the corporate world to bring in a change. In that, see, generally we feel who is the person who is most responsible or who is working towards environmental protection. And one thing we miss is rat pickers. This is where Bottles of Change program is, where we have tied up with this lady. In turn, they have tied up with rat pickers and paperman. And the basic purpose is to recycle. And we come back on this again. And as I'm again saying, as part of NSS family, I feel it's our duty to protect our environment. And we need to understand, though we have been doing a great work, but that is not enough. We need to do better. We need to do more. I'm a management professor. I am not somebody who is an expert in geology. I'm not an expert in talking about animals. So my journey will be how to manage the things what we are doing so that the outcome is effective. We are planting so many trees, but we do not understand, we do not see after 1 year how many trees they are surviving. We do not have any sensors. We only know how much we have planted. So this is like a journey where we need to make an action plan, and all of us will have this journey together where I will tell you a story about an iceberg which is in danger and how the penguins, little penguins, they are trying to save it. Same way we are present on earth, and we need to understand that if we do not save this earth, and I was much impressed by when Dr. Christopher said on first day that we are just guests on this earth. So it is not that we can use earth. It is only we are temporary members of earth, and we are not only the temporary, we are not only the members. 360 million species are there, and our welfare, our survival is dependent on the survival of those species. That was also talked yesterday about biodiversity. So we have to understand all these things, and that is why this webinar, I'm very happy it has played a very important role. Even when I attended this webinar, so many things came to my mind which I thought I will share and which are implementable, on which we can act, and actually it will make a difference in the way the NSS is doing work to protect the environment. So there was a penguin who was living in an iceberg in Antarctica, and this small penguin was, there was a colony of penguin and they were living on an iceberg, and they always considered it as their home, as we do. We never thought there is another life or any other planet. Till now, after so much of scientific exploration also, we have not found any planet that has the required air, water, oxygen, and the condition, the temperature, the humidity, which can make human beings survive. So that is again very important that if we have another planet, maybe that is another story. But for now, Earth is what we have, and we need to protect it. So penguins, their major thing is they go hunting for fish. Ravina, can you please mute? Ravina K, please. Thank you. And they go hunting, and Fred was one penguin. He was very curious and observant. And when he went hunting, he watched something. The next slide, please. And he found an iceberg is collapsing. Like 2 days, you have heard about climate change. We have heard about how the sea level is rising. See, I was talking to some of my friends who had houses near ECR, near the beach, and they were telling over the past 10 years, they can see a change wherein the water has come closer to their beach houses. What does that depict? The sea level is rising. A very simple way of knowing sea level is rising. Our glaciers are melting and the sea level is rising. The temperature over a period of time, it is more than what it was earlier. So ultimately what will happen? 70% is already sea. One day there is a possibility the earth will also go under sea. That is where we have to protect our earth. So when he found that iceberg is collapsing, he was in distress. He said, oh, I have to do something. And I think that is the situation where we are in. If we do not protect the earth, one day the earth will not be there. And what he found was on icebergs, there are little canals, and those canals, when there's a temperature difference, when it freezes, if you have ever seen, you are all studied science. So when it freezes, it expands. Expands means the position, the place that is required is more. So that is what he found, that when the freezing liquid expands, the iceberg can break. So he thought, okay, this is what the situation is. I need to talk. And there was another council member, Alice. They also have a council because they have also a colony. And he thought she's the one who can get the things done. So he took Alice to dive, and he showed how their iceberg on which they are living, it is having fissures, it is deteriorating. Past 2 days, you have learned how our earth is deteriorating due to climate change. Past 2 days, the speaker has told us why we need to save the earth. And as the Earth Day topic itself says, we need to restore Earth, and our Earth is in danger. And Alice also agreed that our home is in danger. And I again emphasize, if we do not do anything at this stage, our Earth is in danger too. And she was quite shaken. And you must have seen in the past 2 days how our predators, they are becoming extinct. We are the ones who are facing problems. The environment is getting polluted. Next slide, please. So Fred thought, okay, there are people who also think that this can happen, and then they thought we should talk to the leaders. So that is where I'm talking to my volunteers, my program officers, where I want you to take action plan which is outcome based. You should know, if you're planting a tree, these trees will survive. This is where, like during Varda, what happened was there was so much of trees that were broken, but there were many trees which survived also. And the reason it was found was that the native species, the trees which are native to the soil of Tamil Nadu, they survived. While the exotic trees, they could not withstand the winds. The native trees, only some branches here and there was some damage, but they were able to survive and they came back. So that is where we need to understand when we go for tree plantation. It is not about planting the trees alone. We need to understand the place where we are planting it, whether they will be able to survive, whether over a period of time they will become independent. Because otherwise you cannot, like, it's like a baby, a plant. Initially you should look after that. But after a period of time, the plant should be able to survive itself. And that is where it is very important. Again, I am emphasizing, we should plant only trees which are native to the soil of Tamil Nadu. So then they have to make a presentation to convince everybody that yes, the iceberg is in danger. And these 4 people are there. There was a Louis who was the head of the council. There was a person, no. There are some people still who say no. Okay, whatever time the earth is there, it is okay. Nothing will happen. So many years our ancestors have lived on this. Nothing has happened. Why are you worried? So no was a person like this. But there was Buddy who was little ambitious. He was handsome, and there was a Alice who was practical, aggressive, and who could make things happen. So basically, this was a council, and this is what we need, people. We also have different kind of people who can make things happen. There are certain people who will say nothing can be done. But I'm a strong believer that if we work, we can prolong the life of Earth. There is no doubt in that. So they prepared an iceberg model made of ice, and they showed it to the council. Now, after that, little bit, Louis was he was convinced, but no said, no, iceberg cannot melt. We have been staying for so long. And he said, how can you guarantee that all what you are talking about is true? Like some people, they say, no, whatever is happening, it is not true. Earth needs to change, and there is nothing wrong that we are doing, and we don't need to do anything. So same way, they also have this. And but there are some people who say, no, if the iceberg melts, everyone will die. And they said, Fred is right. We have some time only where we can save our iceberg. Now, these are penguins. So again, no is saying no, but others agreed, and they said, okay, we'll call a general assembly where everyone can talk about that. So they needed a proof. What Fred did was, they said we need a proof, but there were some people, they said, no, we should not panic. Everybody keep this as a secret. But I feel everybody needs to know that our Earth is in danger and we need to protect it. So Fred, he just conducted a small experiment. He filled a bottle with water, and when it flows, the bottle broke because the density increased, and the next day the bottle was broken. So that is how he proved that there are chances, and he could see the crevasses. He said this iceberg is not going to last this winter because the water crevasses, whatever canals the water is there, it will get frozen. And I have seen that there are chances that this iceberg will no longer be there. So that is where he created a sense of urgency. And that is what I feel is the purpose of this webinar, wherein we need to create a sense of urgency. As a normal citizen, as a volunteer, as a program officer, what I want everybody to do is we need to understand that it is urgent, it is immediate. Sometimes we feel, okay, our ancestors, they have also lived, we'll also see. Our next generation will see whether the earth has survived. See, past 1 year, I was going through the data. The pandemic, they say the air pollution is better, the particles have come down. Why we waited for a pandemic to bring all these things? It is in our hand. We are human beings. We have achieved so many things. We have so much of science behind us. Why we can't do certain things which are, I always feel there are certain small things which we can do. Now, how to have this sense of urgency? See, if you go and talk to fishermen, they will tell you earlier if they were able to find fish near the coast, how far they have to go, to fetch the fish. See, I have done scuba diving, I have done snorkeling, and if you see, if otherwise also you see in the geographical channel, the water, the ocean has a life of its own, and it is much more beautiful than what we have. It's natural, and you have all the colors. It is for our this thing that if we do not protect the sea, what will happen? The things like tsunami will happen. Can we play the video, Deborah, now? There's a small video which I want to share. It will tell us why Earth needs immediate restoration. Thank you, Deborah. So basically, it shows if we continue living this way, the earth will not survive. Earth will not survive means we will not be able to survive. We are just a minuscule part of the species that are there on the earth, but we are destroying the other species as well as we are overusing the earth for our own personal gain. As all of you know, earth consists of land, air, water, and life. And life is what is human beings. And all these are interrelated with each other. Now, one thing is we can plant more trees as it was shown in the video. See, what happens is we use trees for so many things, for making paper, for making furniture, everything we are using trees. But trees, they have multiple benefits. For a very layman, provides them with shade. We get oxygen. You you have understood in the past 1 year how much oxygen is important. You ask any asthmatic patient how much important the oxygen is. Then they provide us with timber, they provide us with what else? They provide us with a site which is green. Otherwise, think of a land which is barren with no greenery around. And what we are doing is we are dumping the soil with chemicals, we are dumping the soil with waste. Now, that is where tree plantation in the right way that is what is most important, where we don't only plant the trees, we also see what I want to suggest my POs is our NSS volunteers are there for 2 years. We have 24,000 volunteers. So give them one tree each, and after 2 years, that tree should survive. It is not about planting, it is making the tree grow to its fullest so that it is able to survive after that. So land is what we need to restore it, and that can be done. One thing is through planting more trees. Second thing is we need to stop putting the industrial and chemical waste to the soil, and that is where we'll talk about organic farming, we talk about regenerative farming. During the COVID days, I had small kitchen garden on my top wherein I faced lot of problem, and one day my gardener said I had too much of insects. There was a kind of insect. He said this insect will not go. And then I read and then I realized neem oil is one. If you spray neem oil, the insects go away. And it took some time, but I was able to restore my small kitchen garden. So there are possibilities, and we need to educate people. One thing is awareness, and that is where we can play a very important role. We can make small videos where we can show how the farmers, those who are opting for organic farming, they are more successful. I have opted a project from Tanshi on organic farming, though it was little away from my management field. Basically, I'm talking about how we can manage organic farming, what are the problems that are faced by the farmers for doing organic farming. There are the laws also that are hindering, because as such in India, we do not have product organic certification. So specifically, I have written that there should be product specification. Only till now the land is given, and land also there are so many restrictions that land there should not be any fertilizer that can be used for 3 years, and the government needs to support the farmers who are going into organic farming. And it's a collective effort. Again, we cannot. We need to make farmers aware. We need to make videos of farmers who have been successful in doing organic farming and are able to earn. See, if you tell a farmer, okay, do organic farming, but you do not tell how it will benefit him, how it is possible, what are the ways that it can be done. Again, the education we get, that should help us in understanding ourselves and then making the farmer aware of the benefits of organic farming. Then here, and I was like, I'm very sorry that here we are thanking pandemic, though it has caused havoc, and I'm not very happy to say this, but actually pandemic brought down the quality, it improved the quality of air and brought down the particles that are there in the air. So that means it is possible, but pandemic has its disadvantages. Now, what pandemic brought in? Basically, it reduced the emissions of transportation. I did a project on green supply management, and when we were trying to understand to reduce the emissions, one very simple way what we found was training the drivers. See, if you have seen, if you put your feet, those who drive, you know that if we require clutch to change the gear. But there are some drivers who just put their feet always on the clutch. Actually, that increases the emission and that reduces the efficiency of the fuel. There is an optimum level kilometers per hour we should drive, which reduces the fuel consumption. Nowadays, we have electric cars also. Wherever possible, we should walk. We can even use cycles also. Now, even corporation, they are making some cycling tracks. So that is wherever possible, we should reduce the use of transportation. we talk about carpooling, we talk about using public transport. So all these things can actually reduce the emissions that are there. And another thing that are contributing is the industrial emissions. There also we have certain acts, and again we can make the industries aware how their pollution. Like if an auto is there, you find that auto is emitting. Many times we'll see. So what we can do, make a video wherein the auto is emitting and how it is harming the environment around us and how it is impacting the auto driver himself. We need to help the auto driver. Again, the auto driver doesn't have the wherewithal to understand that the pollution is how to reduce the pollution. So we need to help them in whatever the changes have to be required in their auto so that the emission is not there. Then we have water, as I told you. If you want to, and sometimes you may feel that I am not able to. As an individual, I can do all these things together. Make one thing as your pet project. You want to save air, you want to save whatever you are interested in, organic farming, whatever you are interested in. We have umpteen options before us, and small things if we do, it will make a big change. We are polluting water, the fishes are impacted. And one thing which I always wanted was, I told my people, because I don't go to the market, there's a person who brings the thing, and I told him, don't bring a plastic bag. You always carry a cloth bag. So I was very happy that whenever the things come to me, they were always in a cloth bag. And one day I saw that what he is doing is he's bringing the things in a plastic bag, and then because of me, just is putting outside my house in the cloth bag and handing it over to me and putting the plastic bag in the bin. My whole objective of not using plastic was into haywire. If I would have taken that plastic inside, again maybe he would have used, because he thought ma'am is saying don't use plastics, don't let plastic enter the house. This is the way he thought. And actually that defeated the purpose of my not letting the plastic bag come inside my house. Then I realized what I can do. I have made some mistake, yes. Then what I did was I called him. I called all my other people also. I told him it is not that I don't like plastic. Plastic is one which is very helpful. It is one of the biggest invention man has made. But only problem is plastic is non-biodegradable. It will not degrade. If it is there, wherever in the soil, in water, wherever it will stay for next thousands of years. And then in a layman language, I told them, see, this plastic, where it will go ultimately? It will go inside the ocean. Most of them, they eat fish. I told them how it is impacting. The fish you are eating, actually it is contaminating the fish, because it is contaminating the water on which the fish is feeding. And ultimately, if we use the plastic and throw it away and it goes to the ocean, what will happen? Ultimately, it is going to impact our own health. So for our own health, we are not doing any favor. When I am talking about restoring earth, I am not doing any favor to the earth. I am only protecting my life. I am only making my life survive over a longer period of time. I only want to live a healthier life where the air is pure, where I am able to breathe properly, where I am able to see greenery around me. And that is where then they understood the basic purpose. So that is where sometimes we feel, oh, this needs to be implemented, but we need to convince people around us the significance, the need, the importance, why we think so. And that is where I feel scientists, they will tell us this is what is happening. But in a layman's language, we need to explain to each and everyone around us. First, we have to start with convincing ourselves this is what we need to do, this is what is happening. Then we have to move on to the family, which is there, because we need to convince them. And then comes we need to make them aware. The community in which we are staying, you can have some awareness program for the community you are living in, to to make them understand the problems that are faced when we put this plastic inside, where we overuse the plastics and then we just throw it away. It's so easy to buy the things, it's so cheap plastic, and then we just throw it away. Though we have government regulations where they say below this micron, this plastic should not be used. That is where this bottles of change program is there, wherein they take, you just have to put a bin wherein all your plastics you can put it, and they come and they take that plastic. Only 70% of the plastic is recycled. See, only way we can keep on using plastic is if we keep on recycling and reusing the plastic. But only 70% is recycled, and that is where 30%. Then I asked, I said, why those 30% is not recycled? Because we throw it in the bins. It is so dirty that nobody can take it out. Actually, rag pickers are helping us. You must have seen when you go in the morning, the rag pickers, they pick all the things which are saleable. So bottles they will pick up, but sometimes it is so dirty, the plastic, the covers, they do not pick up that. So that stays inside and that goes to the junkyard, and where it is not biodegradable. Anything else like vegetable peels, everything they biodegrade over a period of time. We can throw them off. The soil will take care of them. But plastic is one thing which soil cannot take care. Because soil is not meant for, this is what we have invented, we human beings have invented. It is very useful, but we really need to work on this. And we have put bins in University of Madras, but again, we have to continuously make everyone aware that only plastics should be put in this, because we are facing problem. All the other things are dumped inside, and then it becomes very difficult to segregate. So that is where I have told bottles of change that there should be a specialized difference. See, if you put a normal bin, naturally people they will not see what is written on this. They tend to put all kind of plastics. That is where we make I have told bottles of change that we together will design a bin which is different than a normal bin. And immediately when you see that, we make people aware that immediately when you see that, we put it in public places, and that project is on underway. Immediately when you see that bin, you know it is only for plastics. And again, our volunteers, I know they will make people aware that this particular bin is only for the purpose of putting the plastic, not anything else. So it's not only us, there are animals and plants, we need to save them, and we are not saving them for their benefit. Again, it's very important. We are saving them because without them we'll not be able to survive. Like yesterday, the speaker was talking about large predators. So basically, why we need tigers? If tigers are there, what will, if there are no tigers, if there are no vultures, what will happen? Actually, the vultures, the carcasses of animals and everything, they are eaten by the vultures and the environment is cleared. Otherwise, everything will stink. Same way, tigers, they are the ones who control the amount of wildlife in the forest. Otherwise, there will be too much of wildlife. It's like, you must have studied, it's like a cycle. And the deers, they eat the grass, otherwise there will be overgrazing, then the grass will become infertile. Actually, we have overused the forest, and that is where the problem has occurred. The next slide, Deborah. So this is what is the scene. Now, is this the major culprit here? If you see, is the plastics and the cardboard. This is where I feel we need to work on the recycling of plastics. And again, this is one of the things that is on my agenda as NSS coordinator, and I want all my NSS POs and volunteers to make action plan so that we can contribute. See, even if you are able to make 0.0001 change also, together we can make a big change. This is how we are polluting the air through vehicles, through firecrackers. Go to the next slide, please. Go to the next slide. So this is all about greenhouse gas, how the pollution we cause, how it gets trapped, and somebody raised a question that how our ozone layer, and it healed after the pandemic. So this is what, if see our ozone layer, it actually, why it is so important is because it stops the harmful rays from entering our climate. If there is no ozone layer, our human beings will not be able to survive. And we, because of this greenhouse impact, the ozone layer is getting impacted. And now we have satellite pictures which shows how we are impacting through our actions the ozone layer. We are polluting the water, the sea animal eating the plastics, and then ultimately they are impacting the life inside the ocean. That what I told you, it's beautiful inside the ocean, and that is what we are destroying, that ocean life. And I can tell you that all of us are interdependent on each other. If we destroy one species, there will be one day where human beings will not be able to survive on this earth. The forest fire in Australia, all of you must have heard about how much forest has been destroyed because of that. Again, forest is the major source of giving us oxygen. If we destroy the forest, the earth will not be able to survive. And one of the things is we'll not be able to breathe. If we are not able to breathe, what we can do? Next slide, please. So there are some worrying facts. Some of them I've already pointed out, as the statistics also says our temperature has risen by 1.1 degree. The sea levels have increased. I just gave an example. It is not the statistics I shown. It is the people whom we talk to. The sea ice is reducing. The global heat is increasing. And there was a time, there's a friend in Vienna. She said there was no provision for fans there because there was never any summers in Vienna. But last year they had a very bad summer, and people, they were coming out, and because their houses are made to only withstand winters, they never had summers. It was so hot, people were not able to stay inside, and there was no provision of keeping a fan in their houses, and they were not able to buy fans also because they had to import. So much of climate change is there, and that is evident. See, earlier we thought only scientists are saying this, but actually now we are able to face it. So they say if by 2030, if we are not able to control our carbon dioxide emission, it will be twice what it is today, and you can imagine what kind of environment we will be living in. Now, because of pandemic, we are wearing a mask. Imagine because of the pollution. In some countries, it's so polluted that you have to always wear a mask. Imagine a life for 1 year only, we are so distressed. Think of our children who only have to, like, I was just watching a small video in which they said every time you step out, you have to wear an oxygen cylinder. So we don't want that to happen, and I feel it is the time to act now. Can we see a small video? Deborah, just some bit of this video you can show, because I want to finish it within next 5 to 10 minutes. It's a small video which will show how the climate is changing. So we have understood now the sense of urgency, and now is the time to act. And I will just take you through the story, and we'll understand how we can work together to bring a change. We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We have only borrowed it for use, and our children, we need to give it back to them. It is very important that whatever we have learned through this webinar, we need to make others aware about that. are my POs, other students are there. So you have to make, as I already told you, we need to change our activities and save Mother Earth. We need to discuss, we need to educate, and we need to find ways where we can protect. We need to make an action plan so that we are able to make the earth survive, and in turn we are able to make us survive. And again, this earth day, so what they did was they pulled together the guidelines. Dr. Mary, you want to say something? Okay, so they brought. Is there anything, Dr. Mary?
No, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So we made a team. Now, this is where we need to make a team. You have, like in every college, we have around 100 volunteers in every unit. So make a team of 10. And they should have a plan, action plan, wherein they decide any one thing which contributes towards restoring the earth. Dr. Mary, yeah, thank you. So we need to restore the earth.
Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted you to mute disturbance was there. Thank you. So we need to make a team, and we can select any project. Each unit can select any one project, whatever they want, make people aware what is the need for that project. Now here they have pulled together the guided team. Keep on moving the slides, Deborah. So then they are trying to find the solution. We need to discuss. We know the problems now. We need to discuss what can be done. And I want to conduct, you identify a problem. Suppose the problem is there is increased emission in the air. So then we can have a webinar. We can invite experts. We can participate. Every college can participate, and we can deliberate and find ways, make action plan, and we have to find solutions. Now in this case, this was bird flying, and they knew that it's a nomad. So they were thinking of finding a solution. Different solutions they were finding. So they said first we'll put glue, we'll try to fix the melting ice. Then they thought, okay, there's another way, because they have many icebergs. Here they can have a nomadic life. We do not have any other planet. We actually fix this planet. So form a strong team, and it should be a team which really desires to work in that particular area. Please mute. There's little disturbance. Thank you. So we can actually collaborate. There are other associations which are working in this area. We can collaborate with EFI, WWF. We have a Ross Naturalistic Society also. We have MS Swaminathan Foundation. We need to collaborate with any one organization. We can tie up with fishermen. We can tie up with farmers, and actually we can make things happen. Again, as an individual, it may not be possible. That is where we need to have a group of like-minded people. So the first step is involve any one agency which you feel is ready to work with you. Then the next thing what is important is, I was talking about regenerative farming. Basically, it is nothing, because when we till the land, there are some nutrients. There are small insects which actually provide. We cannot see them with our eyes, but they are the ones who provide nutrients. If we till the land, those small creatures, they are killed, and in turn, then we need to put the fertilizers. So actually, we are causing the problem, and then we are blaming that there are no nutrients inside the soil, so we need to put the fertilizers. And then there can be, like I visited Mahalakshmi College. So what they are doing, they are dug a pit, and they are creating their own fertilizer also. They have hanged small places where the birds can come in a small nest, like a man-made nest, where the birds can come and rest. So that is where it is about regenerative grazing, because if overgrazing is there, then again very important aspect is agroforestry, where the forest is there, but in agriculture and forest they go hand in hand, wherein we have the produce we want, but at the same time we have the trees also. We do not take away the forest and then go for agriculture. In addition, like tribal, they used to stay in the forest, they will not cut down the trees to make the produce. In addition to produce, they were able to do whatever they wanted to eat. So agriculture and forest, they have to be combined together. That is what is basically about regenerative agriculture. So we need to develop change, vision and strategy. So then when they thought nomad, so that is what they had a general assembly, they informed a new strategy where they said we have to have a nomadic life. Now that option is not available to us, so we have to develop another strategy. We need to action plan what are the activities we are going to do, how we are going to do it, and it is very important that we need to understand what impact it will have. Sometimes we do certain activities, but the impact is not seen. We need to make this thing that this tree we planted, this is how the tree has grown, this is what we have saved the environment. That boosts our confidence as well as that gives us the purpose in life. We feel okay, we are doing something. Move ahead, little faster, Deborah. So there are 17 sustainable development goals. We can go through them, just I'll skip through that. So basically, any of these you can choose. Either you can talk about climate, you want to protect life below water, life on land, responsible consumption where we should not overuse the things, and then sustainable cities where the dependence on what like overuse of electricity we have, actually we can have solar energy, we can be self-sustainable rather than digging the earth for coal and then making the electricity. So then all these things we need to communicate to people around us, as I already told you, to the community around us, whatever solutions we have got, and we need help from others. There was a scouting team in this case which was formed, and they went and scouted for another iceberg. Initially they found it very difficult, but slowly they were able to do it. Move ahead. And it was the youngsters, that is the college students. They, in this case, the students were not convinced, so they went and talked to the teachers. They were the ones who were able to convince, and that is where I am playing a role, where I want all the students to come up with solutions. Any one thing you want to do it. Because if you do one thing, that will actually help the earth to be restored, and every small thing makes a difference. So slowly they made a scout leader, and there were some people who were supporting it, there were some people who were not supporting it. He talked to the teachers, because if they have to shift, the youngsters, they need to move to a new place. So it's always moving out of your comfort zone. Just skip through the slides, Deborah. Thank you. So we need to explain what is our goal. We need to explain how it will help us. We need to convince. Sometimes for everything we need permission. So we need to convince the corporation and everybody around us. And wherever you need any help regarding this, I can always pitch in. Will not play this video, Deborah. I think it is basically why plastic is very bad for the ocean. And then we need to empower others to act. We are not the one who can do it. We need to have a team. We need to convince our society. See, if I put a plastic bin in my colony, I need to convince everybody else why it is important, how bottles of change is important, how it will help us. So all those things I have to communicate, and everybody needs to contribute towards that. Move ahead. Then we provide, like I told you, when we have NSS, we clean ponds, we have special camp activities under which we clean ponds, we plant trees. All these things we need to continuously do it. How we can contribute, these are some of the things which we are doing it, some of the things which I have talked about, and again I am emphasizing every small bit, it will help in restoring our earth. Please move on. So whenever whenever they were able to find a new iceberg, they celebrated it, and that is where I feel we need to celebrate if we are able to plant a tree and the tree survives after a year, this is where we need to be happy. If we are able to contribute towards recycling of plastics, we should be happy. So that is where these are some of the pictures where actually it has made a difference. There's the Environmentalist Foundation of India. See, preparing this slide itself, I mean, when I was thinking about this topic, when I was preparing, I've learned so many things and so many new ideas have come to my mind, including the idea where actually NSS can tie up these environmentalist organizations too, because we have the strength and they have the knowledge how it can be done. We can put in our services. So that is again on my agenda and we'll do it. And I know my all my POs and all the volunteers will cooperate with me. Deborah just skip it through fast. So this is how the change can be made. It is not in a day everything will be done. We have to keep on working towards it until we are able to, like anything you do, once you plant a tree, the tree doesn't survive. It doesn't mean that you should not plant it again. Every time we do certain things, we learn from it. And I will tell you that I've joined as NSS coordinator only, it is around 6 months. I have learned a lot. And I was always interested when this assignment was offered to me. Initially, I was always, as you know, I've been given Researchers Award as it was told in my introduction. I was always into research and academics. Initially, I thought it will take my time away from that. But then I thought, no, it's an opportunity for me wherein I can contribute. Society has given me so much. And now is the time wherein I have now. Otherwise, we always think alone what I will do. Now I have the team which is so good, which is capable of doing it, which have the desire to do it, and it's only the opportunity we have to provide them. So because of pandemic, there are certain restrictions, but still, I know we'll be able to overcome this pandemic, and again, we will not need another pandemic to restore our earth. We will have what you say, the courage, we will have the conviction that we will be able to restore our earth. And whatever we do, it has to be on a routine basis. It is not that I plant a tree today and afterwards I say, okay, I have done throughout my life, I don't need to do anything. It has to be done on a continuous basis because over a period of time, we have impacted the earth. And these are some of the ways we can do it. Plogging we have already been doing, so we can arrange more ploggings. We can understand how we are impacting. There are all these things you can talk to your volunteers where we can understand the food we are eating, how it is impacting the environment, what kind of food we should eat, how we are personally contributing towards the carbon emission, how we can understand regenerative agriculture. All these things we need to understand. And again, I'm telling all these things, you may feel too many things I've talked about, but any one thing you can pick it up. On the next slide. So, pandemic has made it realize that if we don't change the way we live, we will not survive for a longer period of time. And every single person needs to work toward restoring the planet to its normal state. Again, we have reached a stage where it has to be a joint effort. So it is not only the volunteers, they do themselves, they have to convince people around them to do work to restore our earth. You can't get through a single day without having an impact of the world around you. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of a difference you want to make. In the case of penguins, what they did was they adopted a nomadic culture where they were moving from one place, one iceberg to another. Till that time, maybe it will happen in another 1,000 years. We have to live on this earth. There is no other planet. And we need to restore this planet. We need to make it survive so that we are able to survive. A small video just to end my presentation. all of us can do it together. And I know, I am very sure that we will be able to do and make a change. Thank you very much. Thank you, Deborah. My research scholar, Deborah, who helped me in making this presentation happen. Thank you. That is all from my side. Deborah, you can stop presenting, please.
Thank you, ma'am, for your enjoyable presentation. Also, thought-provoking examples were really splendid. The virtual treat was fascinating. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
May I speak a few words? May I speak a few words? Dr. the Principal, can I speak a few words? Christina?
Go ahead. You're able to hear.
Christina, can I speak a few words? Can you hear me?
Yeah. May I now request Ms. S. Jyoti of the Department of English Department to present the poster. Where is the
Jyoti, you can proceed.
I already told that. Jyoti, you can start the presentation, Jyoti.
Good morning, everyone.
Jyoti, you are able to hear us?
Yes, ma'am.
Jyoti, can you unmute yourself and then talk? Are you able to hear? Start your presentation.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jyoti S. Ram, of Normalcy College. It's my pleasure to present on restoring Earth. Our mother planet forest, plains, not only for mankind. This earth belongs to invisible microorganisms. We human beings are much superior to other living organisms. Our mother planet gathers and consumes whatever we are foundation by communicating have caused a lot of problems. Plastic usually deforestation have damaged Climatic changes, heavy rains, loss of biodiversity, appearance of new pests, viruses lead to more danger. The improper disposal of waste products, urbanization and construction, mining have led to pollution of land, causing polluted soil, loss of lands for agriculture, habitat shifting, endangerment, and extinction of species in wildlife. Water pollution results when contaminants are introduced to natural ecosystems. For example, receiving inadequately treated water wastewater into natural water bodies can lead to degradation of aquatic ecosystem. This can lead to the health problems for people living downstream. Water pollution is the leading worldwide cause of death and diseases due to the waterborne diseases. Gases such as carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, methane, particulate, organic and inorganic, and biological molecules to the air pollution. Air pollution may cause diseases, allergies, and even death to humans. It may also cause harm to the other living organisms such as animals and trees, and may damage the natural environment like ozone depletion or built environment like acting, also known as environmental pollution. Propagation noise with ranging impacts on activity or animal life. The use of outdoor noise worldwide is mainly caused by emission, transport, and propagation systems. Some of the main sources of noise in residential area include loud music, transportation, construction, electrical generators, explosions, and light pollution is of anthropogenic and artificial light in the night environment. It is the excessive, excessive, misdirected, or obtrusive use of light, but even use light fundamentally. All these natural conditions as a major side effect of urbanization. It is blamed for compromising health, disrupting ecosystem, and spoiling peace. I would like to please, instead of
Thank you,
cherishing our
mute.
mother as
May I now request our principal ma'am to share a few words.
Thank you, Christina. And this is for Dr. Vanita. Dr. Vanita, thank you for being here as a keynote addressee. It was really very nice to see your presentation, very motivating, and the PowerPoint slides were really very creative. Thank you for the presentation, and I think we can work together. I have heard you speak about conserving nature personally, and your thoughts about the trees and how NSS can make a difference in the community. And I think being the NSS in charge, you are already making a difference in the university. We see, as we enter, we see a lot of plants in and around, a lot of greenery. And I think the coming years, you will be a motivating force for all the NSS coordinators. And as affiliated colleges, we would love to work with you and make a difference in Chennai. Thank you so much. I'm personally thanking you for being here to give us the keynote address. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Mary, for your words of appreciation. We all have to work together, then only we can save our earth.
True,
Earth belongs to us. Thank you.
true, ma'am. Thank you.
And I want to point out I've got so many insights in the past few days, and it really has helped me in understanding and making an action plan what we can do.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We have future projects already discussed. You are aware of it. And I think we can definitely have a discussion on that sometime next week. We can sit together and plan. As a Vice Chancellor has said, we will do something for our affiliated colleges, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Please continue to be with us. We have a speaker, Dr. Venkat Pula. He's from Australia. He's a social worker. He's a very good friend of our college, and we have we have conducted many programs with Dr. Venkat Pula. He has sent us a YouTube message, and soon after that, we will also connect with him over the phone. He is available now for a question and answer session. Before that, I think the question and answer session has to be given here for Dr. Vanitha. If the participants would like to ask something to Dr. Vanitha of how they can help and if they have any doubts in the presentation, please go ahead. It will be very motivating.
Yeah, I am open to that. I got some response in the chat box where they said yes, we'll tie up with EFI. And that idea I got it now that we need to tie up with environmental organizations who are already working in this field.
Yes,
We have the strength, they have the knowledge, so we can tie up with them and work towards it.
EFI is really working well, ma'am. Mr. Arun is a founder of EFI, a very young person who got into this conservation of nature. He is into cleaning lake beds.
So
I'm
I will
associated
like
with him
as
from
NSS
2014.
family. I will coordinate with him next week.
Yes.
And will not delay it, and wherein our NSS volunteers can associate with EFI and work towards this.
Wonderful, wonderful.
And surely take up this project.
So now we'll take some questions. If people have any questions now.
Anything anybody wants to add to what I have said?
Thank you, ma'am. Shall we go on to the session 2, ma'am?
Okay, thank you. Kindly do, please mute.
Not for all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love. These are the words of Mother Teresa. With this quote, I request Mr. Pandian, Assistant Professor of English Department, to introduce the resource person, Dr. Venkat Pula, the Senior Lecturer of Social Work.
Good morning, dignitaries. It takes immense pleasure to introduce our chief speaker, Dr. Venkatpula. We are honored this morning by presence of Honorable guest speaker, Dr. Venkatpula, Senior Lecturer, Social Work and Coordinator of the Discipline, BSW, MSW, and Doctorate Program. He is an Indian-born Australian Human Service Management Consultant and motivational speaker. He is a principal of Intex Global Consulting that offers strength-based strategies in Asia, Europe, and Australia. Formerly head of the School of Social Work in Northern Territory University of Australia, and also is the founder of the Brisbane Institute of Strength-Based Practice. Venkat sir taught a social work in many universities in Australia, at the last being the Catholic University until May 2018. He also taught the Charles Strait and Sunshine Coast. His research areas are human coping and realizing spirituality, green, social work, and strength approach in social work. He has co-edited volumes on strength-based practice in the year 2012, theories, experience, and challenges in community work in the year 2014, advancing social work in mental health through strength-based practice in the year 2014. Apart from these things, he is an Australian social work educator. He makes significant contribution in the area of social work. It is my honor to invite such eminent scholar, researcher, social service-oriented academician for this session. Thank you, sir.
I now hand over the session to Dr. Venkat.
Finally, play the YouTube, please. Hello, sir. You can connect to the send the link. Audio, please check the audio.
Ma'am is not audible.
No, we are not able to hear the audio. Video is visible, but not the audio. Please ask the technical person to enable the audio.
I think you have to open the tab. Then only audio will come.
Please play it from first. Can you restart the video?
Yes, ma'am. We will restart the video, ma'am.
Yes, please. Move பண்ணுங்க webinar NCS ஏன் இப்படி இருக்கீங்க? A warm welcome to organizer. There is no audio from the speaker. Can you please check that? Organizers.
எங்கம்மா இருக்காது
Sorry for the inconvenience. The program will resume soon.
Mary and the distinguished guests. It's always a pleasure to speak to India. But on this one occasion,
Participants, meanwhile we have Dr. Venkat Pula, he is already there in the session, and Dr. Venkat, can we see you? Dr. Venkat?
I'm sure that I'm the qualified person in terms of my ability to speak on a rather scientific topic. Topic like climate change, and I'll try my best. I'll try and see how bushfires and floods are in a way tackled in this part of the world, and also expose you to a couple of videos in between. And possibly the last one, where the scientific opinion itself is divided on the Australian climate change scenario. One of the reasons why I say that there is a scientific opinion which is different from the
Okay.
Sorry for the inconvenience. There is some technical difficulty. Since we have reached 100 people, there is a limit, so it just disconnected the technically. So give us a minute. There will be a visual treat will be played by Mr. Pradeep. கேக்குதா கேக்குதா இப்ப கேக்குதா கேக்குதா
என்னடா இவ்வளவு கலரா தெரியுதா? இல்லடா, நீ இருக்காத, நீ வந்து ஃபர்ஸ்ட் பண்ண பத்தியா அந்த எல்லா போட்டோவும் நல்லா இருந்துச்சு. ஏய், நீ ஃபர்ஸ்ட் போன் பேசுறப்ப இந்த போட்டோ நல்லா இருக்குடா. இது இதுல
Very good afternoon. I hope I'm audible.
Thank you, Pradeep sir. It was a beautiful visual delight. Capturing our campus is a beautiful idea to do.
Christina, Dr. Venkat is online. I think you need to welcome him. Christina?
We welcome Dr. Venkatpula around our midst. Thank you, sir, for coming here.
Join.
Okay, are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Now, what I just wanted to know.
Yeah.
I actually sent you a complete video on YouTube. Were you not able to play it?
Video is being shared. We are not able to hear the audio, sir. Video is being played.
From YouTube?
Yes.
Do you have a technician who can actually play the YouTube video straight away?
Technical team, can you please address this request? Mr. Yuvraj?
Is Professor Sugato Dutt speaking? Is it?
No, he will be speaking at the valediction. He has just joined us.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. In the sense, I don't know how I have already sent this to you on WhatsApp, into the YouTube, in the Gmail, and it's already existing on the YouTube. Do you have a technician there who can actually play it?
How bushfires and floods are in a way entangled in this part of the world, and also expose you to a couple of videos in between, and possibly the last one, where the scientific opinion itself is divided.
Are you able to hear me now?
We hear you very well, Professor.
Okay.
I hear you very
Hey,
well.
Professor. Yeah, Professor Sugato, I can hear you too.
Thanks.
I was just wondering how I could, will they let me present? I can actually, okay. Someone is calling me. Yes, Mary, how can I help you? Oh, you are trying to fix it. Okay. Interesting. This has never failed before, but
Hello. Yes. Yeah. That's fine. That's fine. I hope. No.
I'm not able to hear the audio. You need to sort of mute the webinar. And I'm not able to hear the audio, please. There is an icon in the center of the technical team. Please enable it, unmute it, please. Mr. Yuvraj. அந்த பிரசன்டேஷன்ல 3 ஐகான் இருக்கு பாருங்க, பின் டு ஸ்கிரீன், ஒன்னு வந்து ஆடியோ, அத வந்து ரிமூவ் பார்ட்டிசிபென்ட். அந்த ஆடியோ எனேபிள் பண்ணுங்க.
வீடியோ இதுதானே இருக்கு. இதானே வீடியோ.
Morning, Mary and other distinguished guests. It's always a pleasure to speak to India. But on this one occasion,
I'm here in the last 2 days to possibly talk about those issues. I'm a humble social worker, and I don't think I have to be actually involved in something like this. But however, the Nazareth School of Social Work, the college, and Professor Mary Angeline and others are very, very dear to me in terms of their commitment to social work, community development, and they've always made it a point to see that somewhere or the other I could be included. And this time, if I'm not included if I'm not making a lot of sense to you, I obviously owe you an apology, and I'll give it to you straight away in the beginning itself. So my lecture will be around climate impacts on our lives in Australia, and I'll try to see the case of bushfires and floods, how this has shaped part of our Australian climate and partly how we basically face. Somewhere on YouTube, you might even find a lecture of mine on coping and resilience, particularly related to the Australian situation, floods and fury, nature's fury. And that was one of social work oriented lectures that could be complemented or supplemented around this particular view that you'll be hearing. But at this time, when I'm parading to you, the slides that I'm parading to you belong to a very scientific coalition, and I've acknowledged them. And even the material that I'm utilizing here does belong to the scientific community. So with malice towards none, I would like to begin my lecture today, and hopefully you will have something to understand as to how we see it in this part of the world, and try to get an idea as to what's actually happening. Okay, so basically Australia has experienced a 1 degree increase in temperature since 2000. That's what the scientists say. The climate change develops a pace by itself. And there has been successively bad fire seasons, each one worse than the last. And the last one was pretty sad. And the length of fire season sometimes increases from 1 to 2 weeks and sometimes even 3 to 4 weeks. And there are still fires going on, although the climate has changed in most of the states within Australia at this point of time. It's difficult to manage fire, particularly when we have so much of bushland. Anyone who has astute interest in Australian situation will obviously look through the geography and the terrain of Australia, and you would find a large amount of our land has bush and very limited amount of people who live there. You would know that it is essential for any maintenance of climate that people must live there in order to maintain it. That specialists feel population into bushland areas may also be increasing the calamities. Sorry, the climate change has also given me, I mean, a climate change is basically for me, very simply, season change gives me a little bit of a cold and uh, not flu symptoms, thank God, but sore throat. So you have to get through my lecture and thank my providence at this point of time. I'm also going to use some videos to assist me and uplift this particular lecture. So there is this expansion of urban populations into bushlands. That means in urban areas, lots of people are going away to the bush. So what does that mean? It means that there could be hazards also caused by human beings. And it's also the other way around, that if people who live in bush aren't equipped themselves in during any kind of man-made fire or anything else or the other, it obviously also affects the bush. So people from cities and retiring to bushlands, Arcadian settings, cashed up, healthy, they are bringing urban evolved expectations about what local service is capable of. In other words, they go from the urban area to rural area and they expect the rural areas and the really bush areas to also serve them. And it's not there. The infrastructure isn't there at all. There is no awareness or little interest in natural hazards because they have not known that. If you look at rural societies which had rivers around, which had the natural environment around, they knew what floods would be, they knew what fire would be, and they would always have people and their volunteers to actually be taken care of. So the kind of artificial movement that we find in Australia of people moving to bushland to make a beautiful, it's almost like a holiday home, thinking about, in fact, staying there and coming back to the city once in a while to buy a few things for consumables and go back, also do face difficulties. Now you can look at the way they're constructed. The house itself is constructed in a way, it isn't generally a brick home, it's generally with what we call brick veneer or lati, wooden frames and everything else. That's one of those issues too. Anyway, we will leave the property at time. I mean, most of these people will leave the property at the time of fire rather than stay and defend. That's also unfortunate. Whereas if it is a rural area, then you know when something is going on to the last breath, people will be going inside the house, picking up grandfather's photographs or something or the other, certificates and everything else, and they don't come out just with the bare, a glass of water or something or the other. They like to preserve as much as they can. So there's a big difference in a way between the bushland culture probably in Australia and also possibly within the within the rural areas. The growing Australian cities, doubling of the urban and rural interface, that's increasing a lot. It's also fueled by increase in population, immigration, and cheaper housing. More recently, in the COVID-19, lots of people have also been thinking in terms of, do we stay in the city with so many people and overcrowding? Do we move out to the rural areas and possibly stay, there's a lot of social distancing, which naturally gets offered. That's a big debatable issue, but it is one of those considerations in a way. Under 10% of population live in truly rural areas, and mostly live in cities on the fringes as far as Australia is concerned. So that's another thing that you probably need to understand when you're trying to look at the Australian tapestry. The fire and emergency services no longer can rely on younger volunteers. Another interesting thing in as far as Australia is concerned is we have a huge volunteer force. I don't know if there is anyone who has never volunteered in Australia if he is an Australian citizen. I have always been volunteering, and of course for the last 30 years that I've been here. So you would find pro bono work, just voluntary work in Australia is just common. A quarter of our government business is on voluntary basis. The government collapses if there are no volunteers. And anything that you talk about, there are volunteers. You go to the hospital, you find volunteers. You go to anywhere, any situation, you find volunteers. So that social consciousness which is there is an important element of the Australian psyche and Australian life. So with fire and emergency services, can no longer rely on the flow of young volunteers who are trained and coming over, because if it's also becoming so long, there is a situation where people can't draw the coping or their own resilience from a reservoir of their own. And I would actually want to ask you at some point of time, if you have time, to look at some of the other videos that I did talk about on coping and resilience from an Indian case study, particularly the Bombay floods case study, which will be a very important case study from the point of view of social work. That's also on the YouTube, and you can look it up. Young people moving to cities and coastal areas is kind of an issue, because what happens is they leave their older parents away, and they do obviously want to go towards places where they get just a place where they're comfort. The changing ethnic composition with changing attitudes and expectations, actually. The urbanate, there's a kind of immigration department also has sometimes a view that if we are getting refugees and immigrants from rural societies, third world countries, maybe they are better off placed in rural areas. Now that's a reasonable, kind of a hypothesis. But what seems to be happening is the rural climate and bush climate of ours vis-a-vis the bush climate of the third world countries, and also the agricultural patterns and the agricultural professions, if at all, if they do belong to, is obviously a different experience altogether. And moreover, I think most people who are migrating from the third world are not wanting to migrate to another rural area, another bushland, and then start looking at, putting out fires or fighting the floods. They're coming to Australia because they want to give their this education to their children. They want to prosper, and they believe prosperity possibly is more in towns, in cities, and obviously mega cities. That's the way. Anyway, there are hypotheses on both the sides, and there are arguments on both the sides, what to do, what not to do. Once again, as I said, that there is a social science ambience and framework that comes from me rather than a scientific framework, and in comparison to the scientists who have spoken the last 2 days. So local fire services have closed doors, relying on distant services, because what's the use of a local fire service when there's no Indian operator? There's also a volunteer burnout. How long will volunteers work? Any country, for that matter, does face situations like that. I guess it's the same thing. Farmers working off the land, decline in yield and quality of food production, reduction in water for irrigation, absentee farming. It's a major issue. They're somewhere in the city, they leave it off to somebody or the other. There's presence of only when seasons are good, lack of local support to suppress fires. These are some of our issues as well. Now, abandoned bushlands. This is another issue, that timber industry and other economic activity is absent in native bushlands. If there was an active economic activity, probably there would be people. Just have so much of nature, which is not really, from an economic perspective, not very productive. but from a ecological perspective, nobody wants to see that such bushland is basically reduced. And there are ecological reasons why people obviously talk towards that. There are budget restraints, limit the skilled workforce required to work in ecology and those kind of areas. Many people, it's you can't fancy all your life to become a bush researcher. You would. I mean, there are a few people who might do it, but then that also requires fancy sponsorships for them to be around such research. Reduction in prescribed burning days. Yes, that's an important indication. There are days when, in order to even preserve the bush, what they tend to do is there are layers and layers of bush, which obviously, before it catches fire, there are days when they can do something about it. Increase in tree changes seeking compensations. Political pressure to avoid controversy, that's also there. I mean, don't underestimate the political pressure that comes out from Greens, from Labour, from the Liberal Party and everybody else. Many species moving to the edge of their own evolutionary range, in other words, there is decay and decomposition that does occur. Government does spend, I guess, big on the rotary wing fire fleets and something, however, reduces budgets for other measures. Workforce vacuum creation, because of elderly at this point of time. The baby boomers is a kind of terminology that we use in our country for those who are at this point of time in their probably. And emergency services and land agencies losing knowledge and capital, increase in productivity requirements mean fewer younger people are attracted towards the industry itself. And the Australian population itself is, in a way, moving towards a 26 million. Availability of water is also becoming critical. We've got beautiful rivers called the Murray River flows, which have reduced with salt increasing, with the obviously the onslaught and interaction with the sea. Fires in catchment areas significantly affect flows. And again, regrowth of the catchment is an issue by itself because you need to be there in order to see it. So you would find the elusive carbon balance debate that keeps coming up every now and then. And the ETS scheme has placed heavier than expected cost on energy producers. It is hoped that there would be some offsets through investing in forests. But what to invest in forests? Which forests? And what do you do with the existing bush? So you've got to recreate forests, and the forest has to be economically productive. For some reason or other, it needs to bring in timber. And the debate on what the carbon emissions will due to are they due to wildfire or due to something else? Conservationists and are unhappy about smoke from managed burns and implications for emissions. So there's always that sort of a debate that goes on in Australia. Right. The health impact, certainly there are health impacts. Smoke from bushfires exacerbates ever-increasing rates of asthma. Asthma is one of those major concerns in Australia in various parts of, all those lands which are around bush. Major new hospitals to deal with respiratory problems being demanded for regional areas, and that's an issue. Where 400 people, 40 people, 6 people make a village, 30 people might make a town. So how do you expect in such huge, terrain with limited amount of people to serve all these things? So it's an issue. So it is what we would call from a user pay perspective, it is increasing. While there is enough demand, there is also an expectation. User pays more for that, and the public service system is almost negligible. In other words, most of the public systems have all been, kind of. I mean, probably they are overrated, so therefore most of them have actually become. They've been outsourced. So basically, privatization has taken long back taken taken over most of these things, and that's the only way the world is going to be coming up. So you don't expect much public sector. That will be ridiculous to expect public sector to take care of everything. So that's the kind of a way in which when you talk about compensation claims, who pays for the compensation claims? The insurance companies. And who pays the insurance companies? You pay for the insurance company. Governments don't. There's a certain amount of things that the governments can do. It's not like for anything that happens bad, you don't just go to the government and blame them. Because they can't really control the way it is. Just as today you're reacting on COVID, it isn't created by India's prime minister or American prime minister, president, or an Australian prime minister. It's just there, and we need to work through some of those things. So basically, we also have a whole indigenous population issue in Australia, and with that, in the northern Australia, dry season fires burn out, control emitting greenhouse gases, and damaging probably the prime grazing land in a way. But that's also very limited land out there. So there are programs which the government is trying to do. The community organizations look after themselves. And a good thing about the indigenous people is they do have their own community organizations which do look after. And they manage, setting up the fires when it is needed. And they also control the weeds and biodiversity in the hotter climate in that part of the world. So the breakdown of incident management process is a very, very complex thing. There has been death of firefighters and increasing technical advances in trucks. Fire trucks has taken place as well. There is this move towards understanding how tries to do their own stuff, and we are trying to figure out whether we could buy a few of those planes in order to control our bushfires. I can tell you one thing: considerable amount of energy is spent, money is spent in organizing lots of inquiries. As soon as something happens, there are big commissions. Commission here is not the commission as backdoor commission is obviously a royal commission which inquires into the cause, whether it's man-made or what has happened, whether it's a negligence on behalf of agriculture department or the forest department, etc. So basically, the scenarios are realistic in Australia, and therefore the last video, of course, that you would be seeing today would also ask, which basically balances the scientific opinion, and I hope you will get the opportunity to get that thing as well. Now, I will now ask you to watch a couple of minutes of news video on our Australian floods, and hope I'll catch up with you as soon as that video is over. Thank you.
It's now right here non-stop for 9 days, and more is expected. 18,000 people have already been evacuated from their homes. That number is expected to treble, with heavy rain forecast to continue for another 4 days. In Sydney, there's been up to 10 inches of rainfall. We haven't seen this deluge for 6 decades. For residents, leaning on each other is key.
we couldn't have done it without our amazing friends and neighbours and people coming together, and the resilience of our community is strong. So Hawkesbury has that. We've done this before, and floods and fire and whatever else it throws at us, we've got this.
All of this has been caused by an extremely rare weather event. A low pressure cell is sitting on land, running the length of the New South Wales coast, and it's colliding with a high pressure cell that's sitting south of us in the Tasman Sea. That collision is causing all this moisture to be continually drawn into the sky and dumped on us. A little more than a year ago, Australia was battling some of the worst bushfires in our history. Scientists say climate change is making extreme weather events like this more common. This time, it's rising water levels that have isolated communities. Rescue boats and helicopters are their only route to safety. 38 disaster zones have been declared in New South Wales alone, where the rainfall is being described as a 1 in 100-year event.
Stay in there, mate. Stay in there.
And it's not just humans needing to be rescued. 10 million Australians are under some form of weather warning, but everyone is being urged to stay alert for the next 24 hours. David Richardson, Sky News, Sydney, Australia.
The last one that I intend talking about is also a video. Opinion has been different in Australia because they do think Australia, with over 40,000 years of had this sort of semi-arid climate, also was prone to other natural disasters. So whether the climate change debate that is being continued in the more recent past is something which is affecting, or Australia will have to be seen in a different context. I'm not a scientist, but this looks to be a scientific opinion, and it's also given in layman's language. Please watch it and make your own judgment. In addition to that, after this video, if you have any questions, etc., chat around social sciences, social work, community development, etc., do them to Professor Mayajai. At some point of time, I'll organize a separate talk to help you out. Thank you very much.
Let me show you how your tax are not only wasted by our public broadcasters, they're used against you to distort public debate, to suppress facts, and to suppress robust debate, to push their chosen political and ideological line on climate change. It's been a joke, really. As I've demonstrated to you before by reference to the science, the reports of the IPCC, no less, and other sources, there's no way you can scientifically blame Australia's current drought on climate change. As you know, this is the land of droughts and flooding rains, and we've been hit by crippling droughts since European settlement, and obviously before that as well, most drastically in the Federation drought. And we'll have to cope with severe droughts and floods so long as we exist on this continent. But the ABC is intent on making the link between climate change and the drought, even playing gotcha politics to force politicians to make pointless concessions.
I just want to test something with you there, because even then when I asked you about the changing climate, you said, well, the climate ever since we first tilled the soil. But the Treasurer who was out with you this week, he conceded that this drought is linked to climate change.
So do I. We accept the science around climate change. We accept that it is part of what is happening here today. Man is contributing to that, and the science has told us that.
So you accept that?
Totally, 100%. You can't live it. I mean, this drought in my lecture alone has been going for 8 years.
And to prove how misleading some of the public comments about the drought and climate change have been, I've shared with you this concise and strong assessment by one of the nation's leading climate scientists.
This may not be what you expect to hear, but as far as the climate scientists know, there is no link between climate change and drought. Now, that may not be what you read in the newspapers and sometimes hear commented. There is no reason a priori why climate change should make the landscape more arid. And if you look at the Bureau of Meteorology data,
Thank you, sir, for an informative section. I now request the audience, if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat box or unmute yourself and ask.
Any questions from the participants? Dr. Venkat, not related to this presentation, but how is the COVID situation in Australia?
Okay. I mean, it is also one of those things which probably is not related to climate, but it's a big question on the, existing climate. Yeah. The COVID situation in Australia is not, as bad as what you would see in India, certainly. But one thing which is very important to mention to all those people who may be listening to all of us at this point of time is in India, I mean, here, even if we had just the other day 2 people who visited from Sydney to Brisbane, we had nearly 4 to 5 days of nearly curfews and complete lockdown. So by default, people wear masks even now. We don't have much flights. We don't have international flights really at all. And we don't expect to fly out of this country probably until about 2022, really speaking. But maybe there might be a little bit of situation change in a few months from now. So basically, I think the higher democracies, which have also probably a lot more literacy, I guess, we tend to view situations in a compliance mode. We have probably a unity among politicians. We don't have governments imposing on us, but people imposing on us. Police do not have to have, a lathi charge or something or the other. In fact, if somebody misses out, the police hand over a small mask to him. We've had some fines in the earlier stages, but basically I think the civil society responds much better. And I think Australia and New Zealand probably would be the top examples of good behavior, or largely good behavior in terms of COVID appropriate behavior. So that's keeping us going. I am 67 and I don't expect to get a COVID vaccine until the next 4 months or 5 months, because it goes by age. It doesn't mean that you can rush to some place and pick it up. No, I'll probably get only after those who are under, who are above 70. They will have to be given vaccine. and they should be getting the vaccine in the next 4 months or 6 months. So that's where we are. And we too have those dilemmas of Pfizer vaccine, AstraZeneca vaccine, and a few other vaccines. Those dramas are everywhere. The so-called European countries have also played their own dynamics and politics with us. They didn't allow us to get hold of our vaccines. So we do have difficulties. The unfortunate nationalism is on the rise in Europe, so that has an impact on us. And I guess the COVID dynamics is such that our economy is down. Our universities, which have $35 billion deficit because international students from India and China do not come. We probably have lost minimum 20 to 30% of our staff that have been laid down. And most of our staff today are casuals, and the fact of the matter is that I teach casually in 4 universities at this point of time, rather than hold one university position. So that's the way we seem to be operating. But the primary goal and the primary aim of most Australian feeling and the temperament seems to be, you can manage your economy and you can manage to get back to your life provided you live. So it's very, very important at this point of time to consider that vaccine is seen as a solution, but is, more importantly, using masks is seen as a solution, and people definitely want to live rather than endanger their own life. That's the situation as far as Australia is concerned. I think we are behaving well.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Venkat. Thank you for joining us, and I would want you to continue for a valedictory session. And we have Dr. Sugato already, his presence is here. I would request Ms. Christina, please continue with the valedictory function, please.
We can move on to the valediction. A very warm greetings to one and all present in this prestigious occasion. A leader is someone who creates an event. The team members essentially bring life to it. No conference takes place without a hard-working leader behind it. I request Dr. Mary Angelin, Principal of Nassau College of Arts and Science, to welcome the gathering.
Thank you, Christina, and good afternoon. A warm welcome to all who have joined for this valedictory function of the 3 days virtual conference on restoring Earth to normalcy. The 2 days were power-packed, and third day we have our guest, Dr. Venkat Pula. A warm welcome to you. And we have a special guest with us today, Dr. Sugato Dutt, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Tamil Nadu Afforestation Management and Planning Authority. A warm welcome to you, sir. Dr. Sugato, I contacted him at a very short time, just 3 days back, and he was very kind enough to accept our invitation. It is really an honor to have you on this platform for the valedictory function. I request you to please address the gathering. Before that, I request Christina to introduce the guest.
The fragments of the flower spread only in the direction of the wind, but the goodness of a person spread in all directions. Ladies and gentlemen, we are delighted to have Dr. Sugato Dutt as a honorable chief guest of the valedictory ceremony. I would like to call upon Ms. Devi Manu, Department of Computer Science, to introduce our honorable chief guest to all of us.
Good afternoon to everyone. It's my privilege and honor to introduce Dr. Sugato Dutt. We welcome you, sir. Dr. Sugato Dutt, IFC, is currently Chief Executive Officer, Tamil Nadu Compensatory Afforestation Management and Planning Authority. Dr. Dutt joined the Indian Forest Service in 1985. and is born on the Tamil Nadu cadre. During his long career span, he has extensive experience in the field of participatory protected area management, captive breeding, and issues related to the public outreach and wildlife conservation as a social forestry throughout the country. He has worked with government agencies, research and training institutions, national and international NGOs, and Worldwide Fund for the Nature, Center for the International Forestry Research and Justice. He also served the Durban-based Wildlife Institute of as a faculty. He has been a recipient of several academic distinctions, including the East Center Graduate Degree Fellow and Best Regional Paper at the Association of Pacific Coast Geography, United States. He obtained a doctoral degree in Human Geography from the University of Hawaii, United States, with field research on the impact of wildlife uh, legislation in the Tiger Reserve in West Bengal, India. His recent assignments include policy analysis and management in biodiversity conservation in Tamil Nadu state, as also land use management at the State Commission, Tamil Nadu. He has widespread experience in training and capacity building within the India and abroad. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you. A very to
So
all.
we can't hear you.
I'm back.
Okay.
I hope I'm also audible.
Yes, you're audible now, sir.
Trust I'm audible. Thanks once again. Well, I mean, I think the topic for today happens to center around climate change. And it's been wonderful to hear Dr. Venkata from across the globe on the Australian perspective. And it's an interesting coincidence that I will give something more of perhaps the Indian story, or more pertinently, the story in Tamil Nadu. I think the flashpoint for every one of us here today is the memory, or rather the dark memory, of the floods of 2015 at Chennai. And we noticed when to the disastrous floods that there was something extremely disturbing about the changes in the climate. And we sat down as administrators, as policymakers, and in the aftermath of the floods, we tried to reason to ourselves, what was it really that was causing a series of disasters of this kind, not just in 2015, but before and after that, and not just in Chennai, but perhaps to a significance to us, because I have been told that by Dr. Angeline, that it was volunteers from the Nazareth College of Arts and Sciences that swung into action and did participate in the aftermath of the relief operations, aftermath of the floods in the relief operations, and have since then have, as a voluntary group, brought together some very, very interesting and appreciative changes in the society that they function with in the neighborhood of Avadi. That got me again thinking as to what relevance would the agenda of or the change. I think there are some technical glitches. I'll just request everyone to bear with me. But very quickly, the essence of climate change, and I'll try to break this down into as simple terms as possible, is the issue of global warming. And I know that their deliberations over the last 3 years may have indeed centered on this topic, but I'd like to just push this a little more further so that we as citizens begin to think of how it affects us and what is it that is triggering such disastrous changes in the usual weather patterns that we are accustomed to. Well, essentially, the world is warming. And the reason why it's warming is now productions from the farms to before in our lives. And in our collective history, what that is doing is that it's releasing into the atmosphere a whole array of what I've called the greenhouse gas emissions. Now, essentially, what are these greenhouse gases? Well, the large bulk, of course, is carbon dioxide, but there's also methane, and then there's nitrous oxide, and a few, fluorinated gases as well. But primarily, it has to do with the fact that there are a lot of factories that are spewing smoke into the atmosphere. There's a lot of intense farming that's spewing methane into the atmosphere. There is also, incidentally, a huge loss of forest cover across the globe. And the reason for that within the state of Tamil Nadu is the struggle that we have to take care of the environment. To get now. Sorry again, but just where we were, and I'll just quickly sum this up. Essentially, we're warming because the world is warming because using the green cover that we have, and the green cover essentially resides in the forests. Well, a few words about the forests of Tamil. We all know the bulk of our forest cover happens to be up in the mountains along the western mountain chain, the Western Ghats, and very nearly some 15 to 17% of our forests happen to be clothing those mountains. There are some other forests, of course. There's crop jungles all across the Eastern Ghats, and then there are the mangroves that line the coastal districts. Now, these are small pockets of our carbon sequestration, which helps cool down and ameliorate global warming, happens to be in the Western Ghats. So now we are at something like about a little under 20% of the state's cover, of the state's geographical area under forest. What do we do about it? Well, the obvious need then is to keep increasing green cover in the state. And I'm so delighted that institutions like yours at the college are participating in the phenomenon of lucky forest. And and have been contributing their bit to the greening of the state of Tamil Nadu. Now, this is a gigantic task. This is a really gigantic task. We must begin to understand the enormity of this by some facts and figures. The whole state of Tamil Nadu has a forest cover of some 22,000 square kilometers. And that constitutes just under 20% of the state's forest cover. There is a policy in the state and indeed across the country to increase the forest cover, the green tree cover, to about 1/3 or 30% of the state's geographical area. So where are we at? 20%. Where should we go? 30%. So there is this enormous chunk of land of constituting 10% of the state's geographical area, namely some very nearly 7,000 square kilometers of land that must be brought under tree cover. So how do we address this issue? Obviously, it is not the government alone that can help do that. It needs a huge array of social effort. It needs an array of participation, not just from the government machinery, but from farmers, from businessmen, from, yes, students, from, yes, you and me and everyone else. We have a responsibility to increase the tree cover within the state. Now, how can we do it? Well, I think the one obvious answer is in a new approach to farming that's called agroforestry. And I'd like to share a few words about agroforestry with you. Agroforestry is nothing but growing trees and crops together. Farm crops added with tree cover. And we've been doing this all the time. We have in the state of Tamil Nadu been planting coconut trees. There are groves of coconut. We have within the state of Tamil Nadu had mango orchards. We have had within the state of Tamil Nadu been growing borassus, the palm tree or panemaram. And we have within the state of Tamil Nadu phenomenal interest among the farmers to bring their lands into what are called boundary plantations. So it does not appear on the surface to be a very difficult task to do. So how do we proceed then? And where lies the challenge? Well, the fact of the matter is that trees take a long time to grow. Fast growing trees take about 10 to 15 years to mature. And although we're looking scientifically at a whole array of species, they will still take about 6 to 8 years to reach full height and produce biomass, which is to say wood or fuel wood or fruits, leaves, seeds, bark, other products indeed that get various industries that demand them. You probably know it's not just timber that trees produce. The newsprint that you need in the morning, the newspapers, that depends on trees as a raw material. There's a whole array of bark products, seeds, leaves, dyes, furniture, sports goods, and so much more that trees can give us. But then again, the most valuable thing or the most valuable object or the most valuable product that trees do give us is oxygen. Plants have this unique capacity of breathing in carbon dioxide, manufacturing food within, storing that as biomass, trunks and branches, and then, believe it or not, breathing out oxygen. So there's a whole array of fantastic services ecosystem services that trees provide to us. Yes, trees will also provide income to farmers. And that's where I would like to bring in all members of society, all brothers and sisters, to be able to engage with greater tree cover. Now, how do we, perhaps as students, as members of social work institutions, and just as volunteers, get into this act? Well, I understand that within the college, Nazareth College of Arts and Sciences, you have a very active environmental sciences group, you have social work groups, and I'm going to throw you a tiny challenge. I would invite you to participate in preparing the ground for the farmers to engage in agroforestry, merely as not just merely as volunteers, but to help farmers to build together a massive tree cover through the medium of agroforestry. What can you really do to help this happen? Well, as social workers, you could go ahead and engage with farmers and talk about the value of the trees. As social workers, you could help farmers explore the market while the trees grow and while he's waiting for the tree crop to mature. He, and very often she, because there are a lot of women farmers within the state, can take up an annual produce of either flowers or vegetables or even a smaller medicinal plants. There's a whole array of products that can be grown in the understory of the tree cover. And that is what assures the farmer that he can get a flow of steady annual income while he or she is waiting for the trees to mature in a decade, 2 decades, sometimes even more. So that is what agroforestry is all about. Farmers can organize themselves into farmer-producer organizations, and there is not a business opportunity arising in that. And so this is also an appeal to those of you who are thinking of entering into the avenues of rural business engineering. This is a wonderful opportunity that can be tapped both to take care of the earth, its environment, and to be able to help farmers to tide over various crises in their lives and to build a stronger and more robust livelihood. And indeed, at the end of it all, become climate resilient. In this season of increasing floods, in this era of increasing drought, this is a way to build resilience, and you will be participating in the climate adaptation and mitigation process as you go. So this is an open invitation to be able to participate in some of our programs. Once again, I'm absolutely delighted to be part of the wonderful discussions that have taken place in the last 3 days. There have been outstanding speakers, not just from within the state, across the country, but from all over the globe. And I would like to wish the organizers and all participants every success in their endeavor to take care of the earth in the coming years. Thank you so much for being part, for helping me being part of your deliberations. Thank you once again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
I now request Ms. Esther of Department of English to present her poster. I request Miss Esther take few minutes and finish it.
Good morning, everyone. I am Esther from Department of English.
So you can start.
Good morning, everyone. I am Esther from Department of English of Nazareth College of Arts and Science. I am very glad to present my poster on the topic of restoring Earth to normalcy. Restoring Earth to its normalcy is not a one man's job. Each and every human being must have the goal of restoring Earth to normal. To achieve this goal, all of us have to join together so we can achieve this goal very easily. In order to prevent land from getting polluted, we can follow some easy tips like eating sustainable foodstuffs, recycling batteries properly, producing homemade compost, and disposal of drugs in the place authorized for those purposes. Encouraging a more eco-friendly model for industries, farming, and stock breeding, among other economic activities. Improving urban planning and transport planning and wastewater management. Various simple and implementable ways can be used to limit the pollution of our water resources, like practicing responsible use of fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides, never disposing of cooking fats and oils by pouring them down the water, avoiding using plastics if possible, especially when eating. Watch how much water we use every day in everything we do. There are ways to prevent, control, and eventually reduce air pollution, renewable fuel and clean energy production, energy conservation and efficiency, eco-friendly transportation, and green building. International bodies like WHO agree that awareness of noise pollution is essential to beat this invisible enemy. Avoid very noisy leisure activities. Opt for alternative means of transport such as bicycles or electric vehicles over taking the car for even a small activity. Do your housework at recommended times. Insulate homes with noise-absorbing materials. Initiatives have to be taken to reduce light pollution, reduce the use of decorative lighting, use of covered bulbs that light facing downwards, use LED lights, minimizing the use of lights, check and put to stop the use of needless lighting during the day. All these measures can make us eco-friendly, restore this earth back to its normalcy. Before concluding my presentation, I would like to say a very well-known phrase, which is nothing but, don't be a man of talk, be the man of work. So let us all join our hands together to restore our mother planet Earth to our original state where everything will be happy and will be in peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther.
Ms. Esther? Thank you so much, Ms. Esther. May I now request Mr. Jeevan to read the report for the 3 days.
Good afternoon to all. I'm here to present the overall report of 3 days International Virtual Conference. The Department of Social Work, the Eco Club, and NERF of Nazareth College of Arts and Science, Avadi, Chennai, in collaboration with the Department of Applied Geology, University of Madras, Chepauk campus, organized
organized a 3 days international conference on restoring our Earth to normalcy from 22nd to 24th April 2021. The first day of the program started with a prayer song. Dr. E. Mary Angelin Santosham, the principal, Nazareth College of Arts and Science, delivered the welcome address and elaborated on the theme of the conference. The Vice Chancellor of the University of Madras, Professor Dr. S. Kauri, was the chief guest of the day. The Vice Chancellor presented the inaugural address. Mr. Ian Henry Maris, the Secretary, Nazareth College of Arts and Science, delivered the virtual felicitation speech. Dr. R. Krishnamurthy, Professor and Head, Department of Applied Geology, University of Madras, and Dr. Vanita Agarwal, Professor and Head, Department of Management Studies and NSS Coordinator, University of Madras were present at the occasion. Dr. Christopher Guna, the Senior Research Scientist, Mahatma Gandhi University, Kerala, was the resource person of the session 1. He spoke on the topic Biodiversity for Restoration of Earth. He elaborated on planet Earth and its components. Dr. Nagarajan Ramasamy, Professor, Earth and Planetary Sciences, Curtin University, Malaysia, was the resource person of session 2. He spoke on the title Earth and its Environment. He explained the mass extinction of various species on Earth, human impacts on ecosystem, and the effects of climatic change. After the presentation, there was a question and answer session in which both the speakers demystified the doubts of the participants. The conference benefited the participants much. The program ended with vote of thanks. In the second day of the conference, Dr. R. Krishnamurthy, Associate Professor, Department of Applied Geology, and Director in Charge, UGC, HRD, University of Madras, delivered a keynote address. In his address, he insisted on conserving natural resources and ecosystem by living perfect harmony with nature. In the session 2, Dr. Ramesh Krishnamurthy, Professor, Wildlife Institute of India, Dehradun, was invited as a resource person. He explained how the population of tiger was pushed into extinction by illegal poaching. He elaborated on deforestation as one of the major factors in destroying animals. Mr. Vishal of 3rd BAc Computer Science and Mr. Deepak of 2nd BAc presented a poster presentation on Earth and its resources. The second day conference was an eye-opener to all who want to conserve marine wealth and work towards balance of ecosystem that plays pivotal role in restoring Earth to normalcy. The program came to an end with vote of thanks. In the day 3 of the conference, Dr. Vanita Agarwal, Assistant Professor of Department of Management Studies, University of Madras, and NSS in charge, NSS Cell, University of Madras, shared the words of wisdom about how the ecosystem is being exploited by human beings through various types of pollution through her innovative presentation. Dr. Venkat Pulap, Senior Lecturer, Social Work and Collaboration of the Discipline of Social Work, BSW, MSW and Doctoral Programs, Foundation, Professor of Strength-Based Social Work Practice, Brisbane Institute of Strength-Based Practice, Senior Research Fellow, ILWS, Charles Sturt University, Inaugural Fellow, Australian College of Researchers, and Life Member, Australian Institute of International Affairs, gave an international perspective on climatic change and its efforts. 2 students from the Department of English presented posters about the pollution and the climatic change that is affecting our modern age. With this, I finish my the report. Thank you.
Dear audience, we have some announcements. There is now link is being posted in the chat box. Volunteer register fee form has been published in the chat box. Kindly use it, and even the feedback forms Google link has been posted there. kindly make a use of it. And I also have one more information regarding the event. We received few entries from the college and also received the request to extend the submission of the dates. Based on the request, we are extending the entries until 30th April 2021. May I now request Ms. Alamelu to give a brief note on publication details. Thank you, Christina. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to give you the publication details, submission guidelines. Original contributions are invited from the participants for presentation in the conference. The paper presenters are sent an abstract of the paper not exceeding 250 words by email to webinarncs@gmail.com. Abstract and papers should be typed in MS Word format in font size 12 times New Roman style. The full paper must not exceed 2000 words, including tables and references. HM Publishers, a sister concern of National College of Arts and Science, is bringing out publishing a conference proceedings on protection and conservation of nature challenge with ISBN number. So the important dates regarding the submission of your paper are: last date for submission of abstract is on 5th May 2021. Acceptance of abstract 10th 5/2021. Last date for submission of full paper is 20/5/2021. Acceptance of full paper 13/5/2021. And release of conference proceeding is on 5/6/2021. The author can get copy of the paper by paying, that is, a copy of the paper is nothing but the conference proceeding, by paying ₹200 per copy. Last date for the submission paper and everything details has been given you. So identify one author as a corresponding author. All future communications will be done to the corresponding author. The corresponding author should take the approval of all authors for submission. The corresponding author is responsible for the full paper submitted to us. Co-authors' names, affiliations, and email address should be correctly mentioned in the manuscripts. The manuscript should be in English and checked for grammar and language errors. All contributors included in your paper should properly acknowledge with referencing and citations, and JPA referencing style is the accepted style for referencing. All manuscripts should be submitted in MS Word document format only. If the reviewers suggest advanced revisions, authors will be provided more time to revise the manuscript. In such a scenario, the publications of the manuscript will be published to the next issue. Tables, figures, and images should be properly named and should be of good quality. If your study has been funded or supported by any institution, agencies, etc., please indicate the same under acknowledgement. The benefits of publishing with conference proceedings are as follows. The entire process will be handled through the online journal system in a very professional manner. The double-blind peer reviewing process will ensure that you receive developmental feedback on your paper. Share your paper in any web-based sources or author profiles to strengthen your academic profile. Grab this opportunity and get into a PhD or master's program easily and apply for scholarships. Having published work will give you a promotional boost to advance your career path and make you more confident. Thank you.
I would sort of add to this what Mrs. Alamelu has said. The money that is
mother of all virtues, above all good qualities. It is time for us to thank our supporters, those who stood for us in all trying situations. I would like to call upon Ms. Mano Ranjidam, our Vice Principal of National College of Arts and Science, to propose a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Christina. I hope Principal wanted to talk something. Ma'am, can I
Yes.
go ahead?
Yeah, I would just like to place these comments. Thank you, Mano.
Yes.
From the publication, when people give that money, 200 rupees, and get a copy of the publication, please understand this money is going to be used for making Avadi green, for planting trees and for conservation purposes. It is not going to be used by the college. So it will wholly go for the purpose that is being stated now. So thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, all. The Bible says, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. I first praise and thank God Almighty for making this international virtual conference on restoring our earth to normalcy a grand success. I feel honored and privileged to get an opportunity to propose a vote of thanks on this beautiful occasion on behalf of Nazareth College of Arts and Science and University of Madras. The World Earth Day inspires us to act towards the protection of the environment and focus on the need for conservation. So the celebration and protection of our environment should keep going in the future. I wish and hope all our pledges and promises which we took in this conference towards environment will be in action. I now thank our chief guest, Mr. Sugato Dutt, IFS Principal Chief Conservator of Forests, Social, Forestry and Extension, Government of Tamil Nadu, for gracing the valedictory function with your great and energizing words. Thank you, sir, for joining us in your busy schedule. I now thank Professor Dr. S. Gauri, Vice Chancellor, University of Madras, Chennai, for his valuable and inspiring inaugural address. It's my immense pleasure to thank our Secretary, Mr. A.N. Henry Maris, for his encouragement and support towards this conference a grand success. I also thank our beloved principal, Dr. Mary Angelin, for the design of this conference, commitment, and excellent guidance. Without her initiative, the conference would not have happened. Thank you, ma'am. I must mention a deep sense of appreciation and thanks to Dr. Christopher Guna, Senior Research Scientist, Mahatma Gandhi University, Kerala, for his explanation on biodiversity conservation to restore our earth to normalcy was perfect, especially all his real pictures which really spoke to us. Further, we are grateful to Dr. Nagarajan Ramaswamy, Professor Earth and Planetary Sciences, Curtin University, Sarawak from Malaysia, for demonstrating Earth and its environment, specific reference to Malaysian biodiversity. It was very informative and very interactive. I would like to express my sincere thanks to Dr. R. Krishnamurthy, Associate Professor, Department of Applied Geology, University of Madras, and Director in Charge, UGC HRD, for his deep knowledge on coastal area and preservations. That helped the attendees to understand how important to preserve the coastal areas. I would like to express my sincere thanks to Dr. Ramesh Krishnamurthy, Professor, Wild Science Institute of India, Dehradun, for an excellent coverage on restoring our earth to normalcy through large predators. That was so inspiring and mind-blowing. I'm very grateful to Dr. Vanita Agarwal, Assistant Professor, Department of Management Studies and NSS in charge, NSS Cell from University of Madras, for sharing on role of NSS in environmental conservation and protection. Your presentation was friendly and encouraging. Thank you, ma'am. I also wish and express my sincere thanks to Dr. Venkat Pula, Senior Lecturer, Social Work and Coordinator of the Discipline of Social Work, BSW, MSW, and Doctoral Programs, Foundation Professor of Strengths based on Social Work Practice, Brisbane Institute of Strengths Based Practice, Senior Research Fellow, ILWS, Charles Sturt University Inaugural Fellow, Australian College of Researchers, and Life Member, Australian Institute of International Affairs
for giving an excellent coverage on resiliency of communities to climate change, specific reference to Australia. Thank you, sir. A big thank you to all the resource persons for your efforts to make this event a successful one. My sincere thanks to our college IQAC coordinator, Ms. Alamelu, for her suggestions and support. Thank you, Alamelu. My heartfelt thanks to the scholars and attendees who have made this presence meaningful and has contributed much towards the success of the program. Thank you all. I take this platform to thank the MCs of the conference, Ms. Francie John, Ms. Archana, and Ms. Christina, assistant professors from the Department of English, Nazareth College of Arts and Science. I also thank Mr. Pradeep, assistant professor from Visual Communication, for the virtual treat and your creativity. A special thanks to all the poster presenters who contributed much towards the conference by spelling out the insights of all of us. Also, I thank the technical team for your valuable support. Thank you, dear all. An event like this cannot happen overnight. The wheels start rolling a week ago. It requires planning and bird's eye for details. We have been fortunate enough to be backed by a team of very motivated and dedicated colleagues of Nazareth College of Arts and Science who know their job and result-oriented. I take pride in thanking and congratulating Mr. Pandian, Assistant Professor from English Department and Coordinator of Eco Club for coordinating the whole event. Thank you, Pandian. I also thank NERV and MSW Department for their support. Thank you, friends. But for the organizing committee, nothing is possible. My hearty thanks to the committee members for your tireless endure. They all worked smilingly shoulder to shoulder to make this conference a successful one. Thank you, friends. I cannot thank everyone enough for their involvement and their willingness to take on the completion of tasks beyond their comfort zones. I once again congratulate and thank you all for participating. Have a good rest of the day. Stay healthy and safe. God bless you all.
Thank you, Mrs. Madhu.
I request the audience to unmute your videos so we can take a photograph. I request the audience.
Dr. Sugato, I think you need to lower your camera a bit. They're not able to see you.
Is this okay? Because I can't see myself.
Okay.
It's okay.
Yes, yes. It's fine. It's fine. Thank you. I hope the organizers have taken the screenshot.
Thank you, audience.
Thank you.
Giving your valuable time to us.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, participants. Thank you, audience. Thank you, sir. Dr. Sugata, thank you so much.
We have published
Now,
day
nature,
2 and day
participants,
3 feedback.
please love nature and nature will love you back.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Day 2 and day 1, day 3 feedbacks are available in the chat box. Kindly fill it. And I also request the NERV students to register self in the register link. It is also available in the chat box. Kindly register yourself, audience. Participation certificates will be given soon.